Hey, how's it going, everybody? I hope everybody's having a I think it's Thursday, an early Thursday afternoon, depending if you're on the West Coast. That's almost 6 o'clock here in the East. Uh, I have a good guest for you today, a special guest, whatever you want to call it. You guys know who he is. I don't have to explain myself. He's one of my goat guys, I call him, one of my goat podcasters slash content creators. He's the one, the only Rob Schuh.
Appreciate that introduction, Aaron. I do. You know what's funny is before all the goat talk became goat talk, that was actually my nickname as a kid. I had my first car. I was in a group of gearheads as friends. The first car that I had was a 1969 Pontiac GTO. Got it when I turned 16. Worked my butt off at the local pizza joint to get up enough money to buy a crappy ass GTO. But I loved it. I mean, it was perfect to me. I had seen Dazed and Confused, and I was very much trying to be Kevin Pickford, which with his 1970 GTO Judge. Mine was not a Judge. It was the lesser model, but it had a 455-inch cubic inch engine. It was beautiful. And the nickname for a GTO is the GOAT. And so all of my friends did call me GOAT back then, but it didn't mean greatest of all time.
Well, I mean, my meaning is totally different, but if you want to go with it, I mean, I'm totally fine with it. No, I just have I have a really high level of respect to people who grind really hard. And this year, I saw that you went to the combine and you had your media pass, and I was just like, that's freaking awesome. You and Jason, to me, that's like, there's two different types of people. There's people that get jealous of other people's success and hate, and then there's people that are totally like, I don't know, man. Like I'm right there with you. I would have gave you a big time like bear hug or high five or whatever, a jump and hit shoulders together. Be like, you got the freaking combine, bro. So I was really stoked for you. I thought that was great. I thought it was great.
Thank you. Honestly, like I have to stop and pause and appreciate that. I think that's an important thing to do in life, right? Sometimes you forget to be grateful in the moment. You forget to look at something as the experience. And I think I did a good job of being present there at the combine and appreciating what it was in that moment. But sometimes I forget, like sometimes when maybe some other things are going on in life and you get dragged down by what may be going on, you lose sight of those things that you really need to hold on as far as gratitude is concerned. And to me, that's the basis of my happiness. When I'm rooted in gratitude, I'm a much healthier individual.
Definitely. It's sometimes as people, we don't stop and smell the roses, so
Amen.
to speak, because we're so caught up in whatever trials and tribulations that we are dealing with on a daily basis. All of us deal with them.
Yes.
Whatever level of what they are and what they entail. But at the end of the day, like there is certain things in my life, like when I'm around my nieces and my nephews, and I'm an uncle, regardless of what I'm going through, and when I'm that person, and my problems go on the back burner for them, and it makes me feel amazing. So we're not trying to get all be everybody's shrink here, but
a little life. Sentimentality never hurt anybody.
Yeah, to me, it's you got to be honest with what things make you happy, and sometimes you got to focus on those things when you're in a really negative light or in a dark place. And I mean, I'm in a dark place a lot of times because I deal with anxiety, depression, and stuff. But so I'm always trying to grasp at things that I enjoy and try to keep me upbeat.
Me too, my friend.
I feel ya. So I figure we get to the first topic here. This topic that everybody I've had Larry. Who else did I have on? I had Larry. Brian Peacock, and I have you, and I pretty much asked them all this question. So I'm gonna.
You've been killing it, by the way. Let me say that. Let me just say that to those that are watching. Aaron has been crushing it. Like Aaron deserves to get the recognition of the work that he's putting in right now. And I just want to say that I have taken note, and it inspires me. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had to say it.
No, it's one of those things. You put yourself out there. If people say no, they say no. But I've had Brian on before, I had Larry on a couple times. It's weird, man, because my nature is to not bother people. I hate being like stalkerish.
Right.
But I mean, you got to be persistent. I mean, there's so many different levels of channels. There's like channels that are into like scouting and they break down stuff like John Chapman,
right?
Jason, even Jesse to some points. And then I always looked at myself as kind of like a visual podcast. You know what I mean? So a lot of my stuff is just a lot of talking and a lot of trying to have as many thought provoking guests on to give the audience something to like sink their teeth into. Because sometimes it's kind of boring for me to just come on and talk to the screen. When I have somebody else I can kind of throw stuff at, it makes for, and then it seems like everybody in the audience reacts to sometimes having more than one person in the chat. I don't know what it is. So I'm fine with it. So I mean, to me, you're right up there with those guys. So it's like every time I can get you on the channel, it's always a plus for me, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah. So the Jimmy Garoppolo situation is a situation that we're still dealing with, and everybody's tired of it. I'm freaking so irritated with it. My brother messes with me. He's a Dolphins fan. He's like, "What's going on?" He's always like, "What's going on with Jimmy?" And I'm like, "Shut up,
quiet down, Dolphins fan. You got enough stuff going on there."
Your team is so rat ass. I don't want to hear it, but no, he's cool. What do you make of all this, man? Like, I cannot believe who's to blame. Like, is there? I know you're always of the positive mindset and you try to keep it in the positivity. Break away from that for a second. If you were going to blame somebody, is it just a big collaborative blame pie of all these people, whether it's Don Yee, Jimmy himself, or the 49ers?
I do think that there has to be some blame to go around. It's important to recognize that we don't have all of the inside information. It's important to say that what I'm saying here is not fact. It's speculation, but I think it's fun to speculate on these things. And it's not like it's pure tinfoil hat speculation. It's an observation of what we have seen, which is some visual evidence, some, actual evidence of them putting out the facts of the situation. When I saw John Lynch at the Combine in the interview with Peter Schrager and then again in the presser, I thought it was very clear that he was surprised by the surgery for Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's a bad sign. When the quarterback, the star quarterback that you're looking to trade, goes out and gets a major surgery that's going to hinder your ability to trade him, and you didn't know that was going to happen, that's a disconnect. That is an unfortunate set of circumstances that I do think played into this. So when I look at it, I see it as a lot of things happened that we didn't predict, that I don't think anyone could have predicted. Tom Brady coming back after just 40 days. That's sort of crazy. Must have been weird at home and he wanted out. Whatever it was. Russell Wilson actually moving, Aaron Rodgers staying put. Like, a lot of things unfolded in ways that I think couldn't have been entirely anticipated. You could have had contingency plans, but not really. And so to me, you have to acknowledge that. But then it seems clear with all the movement that took place, the simple fact that Jimmy's still on the roster would indicate to me that there were some missteps by John Lynch and the 49ers organization.
Definitely. I want to get to this real quick. Thank you, John Jay from 49ers Ultimate Report. He says, "Sup, first takes. Question for Rob. Have you ever attended a game at Candlestick Park? Also, do you miss Candlestick?"
Yes and yes. I was fortunate enough to grow up in the Bay Area. We moved from Massachusetts all the way across to Palo Alto, California. That's awesome. In 1986, 1987, my dad started to get tickets from a dude that he worked with at a software company there in Silicon Valley. And my brother and I and my dad started going to games. And then we all fell in love. I mean, how do you not fall in love with the freaking 49ers in the mid 80s? Like, come on. I'm a 8-9-year-old kid. Like, I was infatuated by this team that was so spectacular in the 80s. Joe Montana, forget about it. And then my dad got season tickets. And so we rolled season tickets at Candlestick. And the best year for me was 1994 for obvious reasons. But that was the year my brother went away to college. So he goes off to Princeton, New Jersey to start attending college as the, Ivy League dude that he is. I'm staying at home, the sort of the less Ivy League guy in the family, and went to every single game that year because my brother was out of town. We only had 2 seats, so we used to alternate. But 94, I went to every single game with my dad. So yes, I miss it terribly.
I've never been to an NFL game, for all you people that come on my channel, so I don't know if that takes me out of the running for like MVP YouTuber or something, but I just have never been.
What's the closest stadium to you, Aaron?
The Bills.
The Bills are. Okay. So I have not checked that off of my list, but right here, right now, I want to say that when I go to see a game in Buffalo, I want to see you there. I want to make that happen. I want
If
you
I
and
know
I
I'm
to go to
running
the
into
game.
people, if I know I'm running into people, I was telling my nephew about this. He's like, "Oh, geez," they mess with me because they know I am on YouTube, and I have a lot of people that have met through YouTube. You know, you, Jackhammer, Jason,
Right.
Jesse, all you guys, Niner Sickness, and a lot. I said one of these days, if there's a huge game that everybody's going to be at, I said it'd be awesome to interact. My nephew's like, "You are not going to go to that game and take pictures with people. It's about the game." I'm like, "No, you're going to stand in the background because you don't belong in the picture, and I'm going to hang out with all my cool YouTube buddies and feel special for once in my life." So no, it would be great, and I definitely would if I knew we were going to be there. Absolutely,
Yeah.
we'd have to meet up somewhere. I'm kind of hard to miss. I'm kind of a
Me
oddly
too.
shaped.
You can spot this bald head in a crowd for sure.
I'm an oddly shaped individual. I got a big old dome, red hair.
Well, hey, maybe it's New Orleans some year. Maybe we do a YouTube streamer get together at a fun destination at a city. I think New Orleans is just sort of top of my list. That's why I default to that. It's got great food. It's a walkable stadium. You can stay in the French Quarter. But I think maybe we should make that happen. Get a bunch of us together at a road game and have a good time with it.
My whole thing is I've never been on an airplane.
Man, we got a lot of firsts that need to happen.
Yeah,
here.
I'm like a virgin in a lot of aspects. When it comes to things in life that I've never done. One, I've thought about taking like a train or something or whatever to get to New York.
Right.
I was supposed to go in the year that the COVID started. It was gonna be me and my nephew. We were gonna do a double dip. We were gonna see the Jets and the Giants.
I was supposed to be at both of those games as well.
Yeah. Me and my nephew were gonna go. I was pretty much gonna pay for it because I'm the uncle.
Right.
But it never happened. And my nephew now is like, "Oh, it's hard to afford going cross country. So if I end up doing anything cross country, I'm probably going to go alone." Everybody's like, "You can't get out." I'm like, "I'll be fine. I'd be fine. I'm a capable man. I could find my way around as long as my cell phone is charged and I have money in the bank. I'll find my way around.
You're
California."
Good.
So
you're good. I tell you, those road trips are phenomenal. I mean, every stadium that I've been to, the vast majority I've gone to by myself. A couple of them I definitely went to with a family member or a friend. My buddy's a diehard Pittsburgh Steeler fan. Went to Pittsburgh with him. Went to a couple with my wife. But many of them I've gone to myself. And honestly, I enjoy that experience. I love being completely focused on the game because to me, that's what I'm there for.
Yeah, I would. If I'm going to go, and I would to go alone and kind of be in that midst of all those 49er fans and just like everybody's family for that 4 quarters of football. That what I would look forward to because I watch games alone by myself because I don't know what it is. It's just I stress out less when I'm like watching with other people because when I'm watching with other people, I get really demonstrative and yell and stuff. So I'm trying to be a better guy and not get like that. So if I'm at a game and everybody else is screaming and yelling, and I can do it too. People are cursing at players and stuff. I'll be right there with them. But as far as the Jimmy situation with me, I just think it's a real travesty. There was actually an interview that I did see. I made a little quick video about it today. It was the video I saw. It was a clip from like a soundbite, and John Lynch pretty much said that like the Niners had planned for a couple 2 or 3 different scenarios of like, if Jimmy was still on the team or if they had to trade him or this or that. And that one of the scenarios was the 49ers having to keep him, but it would curtail what they can do in free agency. And it looks like everybody, including myself, was told the answer a couple weeks ago. And we just didn't want to listen because we didn't think there was no freaking way Jimmy's still going to be on this team. But sure enough, he still is. Man, I'm not saying this team has to be the Los Angeles Rams or any of these teams like San Diego and just, blow your whole freaking deal on free agency. But man, there's a time to act if you think you're close. If a move's going to push you over the top, you got to make it. Like I said, I'm not saying be that team that just goes ballistic in free agency because I still believe in the draft and building through it. But man, this sucks. This is a really bad situation. Everybody's got egg on their face. I really have a lot of issues with Garoppolo and Don Yee, to be honest with you, especially Don Yee. A lot of people think it's like he wanted a double dip and get as much money out of the situation as possible. And if that's the case, then that's just a really dirty move. But like you said, there's no proof. No one really has a lot of answers. But
Yeah, it's tough to say. And my take on it is that Jimmy Garoppolo probably wants to play out the last year of his deal. I mean, he may want to play it in San Francisco, and that it could be that he tried to make a move that made it more difficult for the Niners to trade him, but I wouldn't think so. I thought it was a very genuine goodbye that he had in that presser. I thought emotionally he was done. I think it's entirely possible, given my own experience with a nagging shoulder injury and going in to see a specialist about it and going in for a consultation about getting a surgery done on that shoulder. There certainly is the possibility that a doctor said, listen, we're going to try rest first, and then you're going to come back in. And if that doesn't work, surgery is the next option. But we want to try to avoid that if we can. So I think that while we can acknowledge there are some scenarios out there that would make it, a little more of, well, Jimmy's to blame here, Donnie is to blame here. There are also some pretty natural scenarios that could have played out where it just was unfortunate timing. And instead of him being spiteful towards the Niners, he just didn't take them into consideration, right? He was thinking of himself first. Like, what is the best thing for my body? What is the best thing for my health? I no longer care what's best for the 49ers because, quite honestly, they didn't do all that right by me throughout this season. And so I could see that scenario. That one seems a little more of what I know of Jimmy's character, right? He seems like a stand-up guy. He doesn't seem like a spiteful dude. He seems pretty laid back. That one matches a little bit more of the evidence that I have of his character.
I mean, I've had shoulder surgery and I've had the consultation, and they try to do rehab first.
Right.
And they try to see how the shoulder responds to it and stuff. So, and the timetable usually for a recovery is about 12 to 16 weeks. I've been there twice. So I believe all that. It's unfortunate because, the Niners lost to the Rams last year in the NFC Championship game, and they've been close a couple times. And you could have really used a little bit of that, a little bit of that money, a little bit of that cap flexibility to maybe go and spend it on a Chandler Jones. JC Jackson, it's I don't know how I feel. I mean, if it's only a couple $1 million and the Niners had it, I would have maybe seen them doing that too. But it just sucks because I feel like we're close and we could have used maybe a needle moving move that would maybe change the balance of power in the NFC, or at least give people the illusion that the balance of power is changing or moving, and we weren't able to do that. So
no.
I'm a little sour about that.
And I do think that even if the Niners have freed up that $25 million, I think it's fair to assume they would have been reasonably conservative still. Yeah. I don't think they would have gone out and spent it all, right? I don't think clearing Jimmy would have brought in, Tyrann Mathieu, Stephon Gilmore, and Chandler Jones. I just don't think the Niners are that team that believes that's the way to add to their core. They seem to be focused on value. They seem to be focused on growing their own players. And they certainly have done a good job of developing players and then paying them at the top of their wage scale. It's unfortunate because it's hard to imagine that they weren't hindered in some way by Jimmy's money being on the books. Like, they certainly were. That is a fact. I don't think you can dispute that, because even if you say, well, all they have to do is this extra step of extending some player, well, that's harder, right? You had to go to that player. You had to negotiate an extension. You've now committed yourself to that player for longer. You've kicked money down the road, and now you have freed up some cash. That's more difficult than simply having shipped Jimmy off of the books and not having to commit yourself to any of the players that may already have a lot of backloaded money. So I think that you have to acknowledge it did something, while also keeping in mind what the 49ers overall strategy is, which is reasonably conservative when it comes to free agency, in my observation.
Do you think they're I guess I'll jump right into this topic because it kind of coincides. Do you think they're a Moneyball team? Do you think the Niners are a Moneyball franchise? I've been back, like I told you off camera, I'm back and forth on this. I get both sides of it, but a lot of people say that they shop at the dollar store a lot of times instead of being all in. And I can see that argument, but then I can also see the, build through the draft, resign your own guys argument as well. Where do you fall in that on that side of the issue?
I don't think the Niners are necessarily a Moneyball team, and the evidence I would present for that is all of the top of their positional contracts that they've given out. So I think that they've shown they're willing to spend money. But I would characterize the 49ers more as acting prudently right now. They believe that the recipe for success is to primarily build through the draft, make the occasional smart trade where you bring in a player that may have been underperforming on another team or was in an unfortunate set of circumstances like a Trent Williams. But certainly Laken Tomlinson would have fit that mold as someone they brought in that was underperforming, that then had a phenomenal career with the Niners and earned himself a bag when he went elsewhere. They've in the past done a good job, I thought, of re-signing their own. That's the criticism I guess I have in this offseason. There were a couple of moves that felt somewhat painful in that regard, but you also look at the price tag for those players, and some of those price tags are hard to swallow. But I do see the 49ers as saying, hey, we're building through the draft. We're focused on re-signing our own players. We have like 7 players that are going to be at the top 3 in their positional value relatively soon on expensive contracts. And Matt Mayoko did an interesting story where he examined how the 49ers built their roster and how the Rams built their roster. And he basically explained it, boiled it down to the Niners have those top-end contracts. They have those bottom fill-in players, but they also have guys in that $3 to $8 million range, which he called the middle class. The Rams have eliminated the middle class. They've gone all high-end players and all low-end players. And I do think you have to examine that as a feasible strategy that the Niners might want to pursue as soon as they've confirmed that Lance is that guy. I think that's the critical step for the Niners. The moves they've made so far indicate to me that they're being prudent and waiting until they know for sure Lance is who they think he is. And then I think you'll see them push a few more chips into the middle of the table.
Is that alarming to you that they're waiting and wanting confirmation that they don't know if Lance is the guy and they want to wait another season, possibly?
Alarming, maybe too loaded of a word. I wish it weren't the case. I wish they were very confident with their moves and that exuded some confidence that I could draw from and say to myself, Lance is that guy. But I also think it's reasonable. Like, they don't know. They unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to view it, they rolled with Jimmy last year. We got flashes of Lance. We got to see him in week 5 where it was clear had he started the season, he probably would have struggled. Like those people who are like, well, Lance would have done just as well as Jimmy. I'm like, really? You saw that in week 5 and your conclusion from that is he would have done just as well? Like, I think he could have improved. I think it could have happened quickly, but I also have to acknowledge that it could have been a rough start to the season if we had just rolled directly with Lance. And again, to me, when I look at the end result of that season, I'm hard pressed to say it was a negative thing, right? If they didn't roll with Jimmy and the season didn't play out the way that it did, I wouldn't have got to go to Green Bay and check that box and sit there in the snow and watch the Niners win in Lambeau. So, I think I would love it if the Niners had seen more Lance and they could say definitively, we know what we have and we're pushing more chips in. But I was okay with the end result of the season last year, and therefore logically I sort of have to be okay with the idea that we didn't see enough of Lance to be certain. We can have hopes, they can have beliefs, but I think until they see the proof on the field, it's reasonable of them to be somewhat prudent here.
And I can understand that line of thinking as well. You don't know. You really don't. They didn't see enough of him this year to come to that conclusion. So
no, there should be optimism. Week 5 to week 17, lights out. But again, I think you got to see more to really confirm it.
Yeah, definitely. You know what it is a lot of times, Rob, is that we just want a championship. We want to win. We want the Niners to win a Super Bowl. And I'm an impatient individual, and I can be negative. But my negativity comes from I'm tired of waiting. I've been waiting since I was 15.
Yeah.
And now I'm 42 years old. I just want that Lombardi back where it belongs, to the best franchise ever in the National Football League. And my nephew's never got to experience it. He's 20. Is he 20 and be 27 this year? He was born in 95. All he's experienced is heartbreak. All he's experienced is heartbreak. Or it's like feast or famine. Even we have a really good season or we're total trash. And he doesn't get overly excited when the Niners make a move. He's always like, whatever. Well, let's see if they can go out. Like he's hard. You think I'm bad with the kind of the not negativity, but just He's just hard to please.
A little pessimism, right? Not going to take a move and be like, oh, that's it. That's the one that puts us over the top.
Yeah, he's not like that.
That's probably better for his sanity. He saw us
fumble a lot of, like, he goes, it figures we lose to Baltimore. And then you look at what's his name the rest of his career, and he does absolutely nothing. Joe Flacco. He goes, of course the Niners are going to lose that Super Bowl, right? He's jaded a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's only been on this planet less than 30 years. So I completely get that. And I've experienced it even longer, not seeing a championship. So it's just like, oh Lord. So I get I'm all over the place with the Moneyball thing. I don't think they're a Moneyball franchise. I do think sometimes they're afraid to kind of pull the trigger because of things that have happened to them in the past with like the D Ford situation or the Quan Alexander situation. I get that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and I'm just saying this, if you think you're close and you think that one or two players might push you over the edge, you got to take that chance. You have to. You have to.
I agree with that. And I do think that, just to mention another player that may be, somewhat recent memory for them, people always wanted to spend big on a cornerback. Nate Clements did not work out so well for the 49ers. They went big on that one. Didn't work out so well. I think that I agree. There are times where it is prudent to be aggressive. And that is where sometimes I feel like the Niners miss out, that you don't see them take that kill shot. But I think it's possible you see that happen in an in-season trade for the 49ers. Right. Because, again, my theory is they're just trying to confirm what they believe to be true, that Lance is that guy. But they need to be certain because right now, like you look at John Lynch, you look at Kyle Shanahan, I don't think those seats are warm. I think they have pretty good job security relative to most people in the NFL. It's still the NFL. Anything could change on any given year. 2 years from now, they could both be fired. I think right now they feel pretty secure. And so they can look at things from more of a long-term perspective. We want to be great for 6 years because that gives us a better chance of taking home a Lombardi or two along the way. If we push in too quickly and we're wrong about it, and we don't miss our window right now, and we do miss our window right now, we've now handicapped ourselves for the next 5 or 6 years after that. So my thing is believing that once they confirm that Lance is that guy, you could see a midseason trade where they try to bring somebody in or more aggression next offseason.
Everybody always says that like, oh, I would take the Niners winning at one time and then us sucking the rest of the time, and I would be totally happy. You say that now, okay? Say we win a Super Bowl this coming season, and then we're bad for another 10, 12 seasons after that. Really? I'd rather be competitive every single year. I think in some ways you can have both if you do things right. Again, you don't have to be the Rams. You don't. And I'm not crapping on the Rams because if the end goal is to win a Super Bowl, you do that. And if that's how you run your deal, they won a Super Bowl. Like, how can you hate on it? But at the same time, like I said, if there's a move that you think, man, if we get this guy, like when the Niners went in on Emmanuel Sanders, and that pretty much propelled them to get to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
You got to make the move because then if you never want to have the thing where you wish you could have or wish you did, and you don't want to ever look back. So maybe you're right. Maybe we go into next year and we're doing well. We're unbeaten, and the Niners have a chance to make an in-season trade for like a pass rusher or something, or a receiver or something, some big needle-moving move, and they do it. And then you just go with it. Whatever the result is at the end of the year, it is what it is. But
right.
I see all sides of the argument. I'm just impatient, and I want us to win a Super Bowl. So I'm like one of those people that like I go with the wind. Wherever the wind blows, that's where my emotion is. I'll listen to you, and then I'll get on another stream with someone who's like hyper negative, and I'm like all right there with them too. So
you're like, yeah, I knew that was BS.
Right. So I understand everybody's sides in all of this. So
yeah, I feel you, man.
We still got quite a bit of off season to go, so we can calm down a little bit, or at least
that's very true. You can't give a complete grade on free agency until free agency is finished. That is absolutely a fact. I also find myself impatient though, and I also find myself debating back and forth. Well, if I could trade one Lombardi, because it has been so long since we've had one and we've been so close. Even for a guy who stands behind the idea that I would rather be competitive every single year, I'm tempted when someone throws out that, well, what if you could trade for that one Lombardi? There's like my eyes get real wide and I'm like, wait a minute, we could bring home that 6th Lombardi. And so it's a viable argument to have, right? I think you can't say one way is right or the other is wrong. To me, it just is sort of a preference there.
Yeah. All I know is that once the season starts, nobody will care. And we'll be right back, being as passionate and as loyal and as completely crazy as we always are. It's just there's a lot of time in the off season, a lot of wasted time where there's not a lot going on, where some of us have to make up stuff for content. And then some of us really are in that mental state during the off season. Like me, I'm so up and down. I'll be like, I don't care for a while. I'll be like all bitter after the season. And then as soon as free agency starts up, I'm all like, yeah, we're going to, and then free agency starts and we don't make any moves and I'm pissed off again. And then the draft happens and I think we nail it. It's like my emotions are on a roller coaster all the time.
It is a roller coaster.
That's what it is to be a fan. That's just how it is. So if you're not if you're not mentally just like deranged sometimes how you feel about your team, then you're not a real fan.
Yeah. You may not be a fanatic as some of us are.
Yeah. I'm a crazy 49ers fan. I've been that way a long time. I still yell at the television and cry when they lose. So I'm right there with everybody else.
I can relate.
Thoughts on free agency, the moves, the losses. Are we a better team? Are we a worse team? I liked seeing the bringing back of Kerry Hyder. I thought that was a solid move. I thought it was a solid move to bring back Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jordan Willis. I'm indifferent about Dante Johnson. What are your thoughts on the moves that we've made and the people we've lost, and overall kind of consensus, how you feel about everything?
It's tough to say because tough to say what my overall perception of whether the 49ers got better or got worse, because I'm very pleased with what they did as far as the players that they went out, targeted, and brought in. I have minor concerns here or there with Ray McLeod. I love the idea of addressing a returner. I love the fact that he may bring more as both a slot receiver and a returner. I'm not wild about clenching my cheeks every time he catches a kick because he has a little bit of a fumbling history, right? I mean, it's pretty robust. Not very many lost over his career, but 11 fumbles is 11 fumbles. And he specifically referenced something changing for him over the last couple of years, but over the last 2 years, he's had 5 fumbles. And so to me, what has changed, will we have to be concerned about that? But I love the move. I love investing in special teams, and the 49ers must believe that's something that they can address. I have to have faith in the fact that they believe it's a correctable issue so that it doesn't rear its ugly head, because certainly the Niners have been very vocal. Kyle Shanahan's been very vocal about the importance of special teams holding on to the football. So you would think he's aware of that. I like the positions that they've addressed. I love the focus on special teams. That to me is about damn time, 49ers, right? I mean, I am totally Jim Harbaugh's frame of mind, which is you only need to win 2 out of the 3 phases of the game. You win defense and special teams, you're probably taking home that dub. You win offense and special teams, you're probably taking home that dub. And the 49ers seem to force themselves into the difficult situation of needing to win on offense and defense. Like, that's hard. Yeah, that's hard to do. It's much easier to invest in a couple of key gunners, a key return man, and then bang, your special teams unit can take off. So I thought they did that. The losses are where I'm like, well, it's hard to say we didn't get worse because you lost Laken Tomlinson.
Yep.
Got a big hole on that offensive line where he was.
Yep.
And then you lost DJ Jones. I mean, I'm going to take the opportunity to show the barbecue sauce.
Boom.
Because people say DJ Jones only played 50% of the snaps. That's true. And DJ Jones and Eric Armstead in the center there created the number 1 run-stopping defense. And when you can make another team one-dimensional, I don't care that you have only played 50% of the defensive snaps. You have had 100% of an impact on the game. You make a team one-dimensional and you have outside edge rushers like Nick Bosa, like some of the other guys that came on late in the year for the Niners, you're setting yourself up for success. So I thought that was a big loss. The one that stung the most to me was not those two, because I looked at those contracts and I said, I get it. I get it. Like I'd have been thrilled to hang on to both those players. I wouldn't have been thrilled with either one of those contracts being on the books for the Niners. But Raheem Mostert went for what I thought he was going to go for. 1 year, $3 million. Boom. Get that done. And now we have to watch him potentially stay healthy all year, potentially have a blockbuster season for Mike McDaniel in our system. Like, we are going to get to see. I have fear of missing out, Aaron, and we are about to see what we missed out on. So that one stings to me for sure.
That's my brother's squad too, and he wasn't super high on Raheem, not because of lack of talent. It was just the injury history, and I'm on both sides of this. Part of me is wanting us to move on from these guys and start, having guys that can stay on the field.
That's fair.
But then you're right. A guy like DJ Jones, he plays half the snaps, but his half the snaps are more important than someone playing 100% of the snaps who doesn't have the same impact. So what would you rather have? Would you want to have a guy that plays 100% of the time that has zero impact? Or would you want a guy that plays 50% of the time that when he's on the field, he's not only a great run stuffer, but for a big, kind of a squashy, short guy, he's also a fantastic pass rusher as well. So it's hard to replace that. You can't just plug somebody in and say, well, Chris Kasurik's our defensive line coach. It doesn't work like that. You still got to have talent. Talent is part of it. And then scheme fit and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think DJ Jones was the one that that's the one I'm most bothered by.
Yeah.
Like, that was tough. You can't overpay for a guard. You just can't.
No.
You have to, that money has to be allocated into your skill positions, your defensive backs, your pass rushers, your receivers, offensive line as well, but like maybe a tackle, maybe another tackle. But
yes. By the way, I agree with Bay Area Baller here, talking about Ray McLeod and his route running ability. I watched some of those highlights just to see, what we had gotten. I had done some cursory research on Ray when we were linked to him earlier, but I hadn't gone through and watched the film. To me, I'm just so impressed by his ability to maintain the top end speed. He's not a burner, right? He's 4.5 speed type of guy. That's what he ran at the combine. That's what he ran at the pro day. And you can see some defenders catching up to him, but in space, you see him just effortlessly juke people. He's the type of individual that can make the high speed cuts, right? That can get a juke in and not lose momentum. And I think that allows him to stay at a higher rate of speed throughout his return or throughout the carry or throughout the reception. And so the lack of top end speed, it may contribute to him not having the kick returns for a touchdown. But I think overall, we're going to see what the Steelers saw, which was significant return yards on special teams.
Barry Baller also says Miami's running backs were terrible last year. Coming from someone whose brother is a Dolphins fan, one of the reasons their running backs were so terrible last year, and I'm not disagreeing with Bay Area Baller at all, their offensive line is atrocious. They could not run block, and they could not pass block. It's hard to make people. I mean, I'm a little iffy on Tua, as some people are too. But when you have no time to throw, how do you get an accurate read on if somebody's good or not if they're under so much pressure all the time, and you're not Russell Wilson, and you're not from, damn it, his name is escaping me, from the Cardinals,
Kyler Murray.
You're not Kyler Murray. I mean, those guys are like special athletes to be able to move, and
real special.
You can't push the pile, you can't run the ball. So he's right that they were definitely bad last year. It'd be interesting to see that, they have like a two-headed combo right there.
Yeah,
man, they are going to be fast. That's going to be a tough cover.
Dude, I am so excited. I freely admit that I am going to be rooting for the Dolphins, like as a much lesser second place team in my heart. I've got a warm spot for Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. I think they're going to be fun to watch. I'm definitely pulling for Raheem Mostert.
Yes.
But I like the idea that I now have an AFC team that I can kind of pull for on a weekly basis.
Definitely. That's my brother's squad, so I'm always going to like them, except for when they play the 49ers. Just want to say real quick, Niner fan since 1946. He's said it right. Hit them likes, guys. Helps YouTube find me. Helps the algorithm, so my stuff gets found. If you like what you see on the channel, drop a like, drop a subscribe. Same with Rob Schuh. You guys know, I mean, I've had him on a gazillion times. Rob Schuh, that's the name of his channel. He is fantastic. He's the goat of many goats, but he's kind of like my top goat. Make sure you like and subscribe to him as well. Find him on Twitter under the left shoe. Instagram, you're more or less just Twitter. I think you're more of a Twitter guy than anything.
I am. I just started an Instagram account. I haven't officially released it. I saw though that a couple of people have found it because I started to post the combine pictures. I was like, dude, I have 300 combine pictures. I've got to start an Instagram account because I had an Instagram account for a car. Like I'm a gearhead, and so I started one for a car. But I also wanted to have one that was dedicated to me. So it's currently Rob Schuh _49ers. If you want to find it, but I have not loaded all the combine pictures. Right now, there's about 12 on there. I think they're phenomenal, and I think the rest of them will be as well. But I do now have an Instagram, and I'm going to attempt to actually use it, especially once in season, once I'm at games. I will post photographs that are relevant there.
Yeah, my Instagram, a lot of times, I do it for simply tagging different Niner hashtags. A lot of times that people find me on there, and I've had other content creators find me on Instagram. I use Twitter. I try to stay as positive as much on Twitter and keep it all football all the time.
Yeah.
Instagram's more or less, I'll post stuff about my family once in a while, but it's mostly 49ers as well. Everything's an avenue to kind of, if you're a content creator like me and Rob, or people who are, like the Grant Cohns of the world, you're all about trying to grow your brand. So you're always going to be, you try to be active in as many places as possible just to get people to see you and find your content. And, then it's up to them if they like it or not. So yeah, I Twitter is my main thing. I actually got invited, interestingly enough, to the Locked On 49ers community.
Nice. There seem to be some new features popping up on Twitter that I'm not familiar with.
It's like a Twitter within a Twitter.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool. Brian Peacock, dude, I'm telling you, man, the Niners community, podcasters, people who do stuff just on YouTube, people who do both, who stream on Twitch, I'd say 99% of 49er community and YouTube and all around the country, world, is probably the most inclusive, positive, supportive bunch of people I've ever met in my entire life. So I'm glad I'm in it. For a person who deals with anxiety and stuff, I feel very loved. So appreciate all you guys.
You are good, sir. And I just want to say this is a shameless plug that I'm trying to create some momentum here before we get off of the free agent topic. I am now more invested in the 49ers bringing back Jason Verrett. I definitely want him back because I went a little crazy and picked up these bad boys.
I was trying to figure out what I was looking at because from the camera angle, I was like, why did he get himself some roughed up looking cleats? Then I'm like, oh, wait, there's a design like that. Okay.
Yes.
Those are beautiful.
They are game-worn cleats from Jason Verrett from that vaunted 2020 season. My hope is to have him on as a guest. My hope is to get him signed at some point, but I want him to belong to a 49er. So I need the Niners to sign Jason Verrett back. Otherwise, I just have a pair of fire cleats.
Those are beautiful. I couldn't tell by the angle when you put them up. I'm like, what? And then I'm like, oh, those are nice. Yeah, I'm big on him too. I would not be against Verrett coming back. If he comes back on a small deal, incentive based. If he's trying to look for the bag, then you move on. It's like, bro, you can't stay healthy. So
no, I can't imagine anybody giving him the bag. And he said some positive things about the Niners. I get more of a sense from him that he appreciated the way he was treated from the organization. And I worried about Raheem and that negative instance that he and his wife had on social media with regard to Niner faithful, which just makes me sort of ashamed for that moment that did transpire. As far as her saying that, she was getting all this violent vitriol towards her and towards Raheem after the injury early in the season. So I got a sense that maybe he wanted to go somewhere else. I wonder if that's the case. Maybe the Niners offered him that contract and he said, no, I'd rather have a fresh start in Miami. And I can't say I would completely blame him.
Either way, I'm cool. I mean, if he feels that it's better for his family to move on to another market, I'm cool with it too. If the Niners feel like they want to start moving away from guys that have, checkered injury past, then I'm cool on that as well. I mean, uh, it's a game and people play it. At the end of the day, they got to do what's best for their family because they're trying to
Yes,
set themselves up for the future and their children for the future. You play to make money. It's a job. So,
it is a career for sure.
in a way, as much as we get attached to players, at the end of the day, they're people too, and they got bills to pay. So if they want to go where the money is, my thing is, if don't say you're not about the money, and then go sign a contract.
Right. Be
If you
genuine.
say, yeah, like when I heard like the was it Von Miller or was it Chandler Jones? And he ended up
Chandler
signing.
Jones.
He ended
That
up
was
signing
Chandler
for
Jones.
a pretty big bag, and I'm like, dude. I tweeted, if when they say it's not about the money, it's about the money.
It's all about the money.
You winning's cool and all, but if somebody's going to offer you like buku bucks that are going to provide you and your family stability for like 200 years, you got to go with it. Just be honest, but whatever. Right. I'm not hating.
No, get your money.
Speaking of, losses in free agency, we now transition to the draft. If you had to look at the draft and say top 3 needs, I know what mine are. I'll ask you, what are the Niners' biggest needs in the draft as we approach the end of April?
I have about 5 that I haven't quite ranked in priority, but to me, it's fairly simple which of those climb toward the top. I definitely see interior O-line as the biggest need, but ironically, it's not the one that I would choose to address first because of the strategy of the draft and where it would seem that you could find value at that interior O-line spot. It would seem like you could address that in the 3rd round. The other 2 seem like the 2 most likely spots for me that you could grab somebody at 61, and that's edge rusher and safety. My fear at safety is that the 49ers are done. That's my fear. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I try to tell myself they're going to invest in that position in the draft, but if they don't invest early, then they're probably not getting a starter. And so if it's not at that 61 spot and they don't bring in any other pick for Jimmy Garoppolo by the time the draft rolls around, then it becomes a question of, is anybody going to be better than Odom, Moore, or Talanoa Hufanga, right? Because you could have a pretty legitimate competition between those 3. I just don't think a competition between those 3 screams to me Super Bowl caliber team.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That
totally
seems
agree.
like a stretch. Like if you were a rebuilding team, great. That's great competition to have. But if you're trying to be a top end defense, that's a pretty important position to lock down.
Yeah, safety to me, when I saw the move and they were like, oh, he's mostly special teams, but he's also in the running to compete for the starting safety job. I'm like,
yeah.
I was listening to Locked On 49ers, and I was listening to Eric Crocker, and Eric Crocker was not having that. He's like, that doesn't make me feel really good. He said, it's like, that's your plan. That's kind of a lame plan. I feel like, I don't know if Jaquiski Tartt has been re-signed.
I don't believe that he has. I believe he's still out there.
The longer he stays on the market, the chance of him coming back to the 49ers seems to grow. So
you would think so.
I'm kind of pulling for that to happen only because I know the Niners, as bad as I've dreamed about it, and I would go on Madden to make it happen. They're not going to sign. They're not going to sign Tyrann Mathieu as much as a lot of his fans want them to. So your next best thing. Your next best option is Jaquiski Tartt. Because a lot of the safeties that are out on the market, they're either as good, if not, or worse. They're not better unless you go after the Honey Badger. Then it's a significant upgrade.
There is, I think he's still out there. Tyrell Edmonds is an interesting one, if still available. That would seem like, because what I have heard is that he's actually that Jaquiski Tartt is unlikely to return. But now I'm seeing, as I look it up, that it's possible he's returning to the Steelers. They are at least working on a deal. And so, if he disappears, I have heard some things that lead me to believe Jaquiski may not be back, but I have to side with you in regardless of the rumors that I've heard. it seems likelier and likelier the longer this drags on. He's familiar with the system. We're familiar with him. If he doesn't find a home elsewhere, I would think a return to the 49ers would be in the cards, but it's one of those that I think we need a little bit of patience to wait and see the end result. That it takes two to tango, and that Tart may want a fresh start elsewhere, just like Raheem Mostert may have wanted a fresh start in Miami.
All I know is that's an important position that the Niners really have to make their best decision at.
Yes.
When I think of the draft, my top position that I want the Niners to draft is another edge rusher. That's kind of my priority in my mind because I feel like Nick Bosa, they depend on him so much, and he's such a hard worker, and he's everything on that defensive line, and I feel like he needs help. I feel like it'd be nice to have a guy that comes on third down and is specifically a speed guy that comes in and just rushes the passer, like Bill Cowher telling Greg Lloyd, rush the quarterback. Like, that's your job.
Right.
Come in, rush the quarterback. It's nice to have the good depth and bringing back guys like Jordan Willis and bringing back like Kerry Hyder. I feel like Kerry Hyder and Arden Key are kind of, you can swap them. I feel like they're more of a product of the system that they're in, and that the Niners get what they need out of them, and then they just move on, and they could really plug anybody into that spot. But it's great to have that depth along the defensive line is in like maybe your base downs, but you do need that one guy to give Bosa help, because I feel like Bosa, the more he plays and the more he exerts himself, it lends him to being hurt. And we all know the injury history with him and his brother and his family, really, if you think about it, because his dad had knee issues back when he played for the Dolphins. So
I think that's true. I think that's an astute observation that he's maxed out his frame from a training and physical standpoint, and that he plays to his motor is such that he plays to a level of exhaustion. And yes, I do think that's a really fair observation, that in doing so, you then open yourself up to poor position for your body. And that's where some of these catastrophic injuries come from, is putting the body into a position that you really shouldn't be in. You're off balance just a little bit. And as your exhaustion level rises, you're more likely to do that. And he doesn't quit.
No, he doesn't quit. And that's the scary part sometimes, is he gets caught up in a lot of those really odd, like, piles of guys where people are rolling at your feet and stuff. I feel like the more the Niners can insulate themselves with guys that can rush the passer, it just makes it takes down the level of how much we need to have and depend on Nick Bosa much all the time. He is that guy. He is that dude. He's that good, and he's worth the money he's going to get if he can stay healthy. But you still need to invest. I never thought I would say this, because we've invested so much in the defensive line over the past like 8 years. You can never have enough good pass rushers at defensive linemen. You can't.
No. Because if you have too many, you can trade them for significant assets. Like, they are in high demand. You can never have too many. This was my biggest regret of things not playing out for the 49ers with the Jimmy Garoppolo trade to this point. I thought it was almost a certainty that the Niners would be able to bring back a second round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo in this round's draft. I clearly misinterpreted the way in which the market would play out. I was as fooled as it would seem the 49ers were in what the market would look like once it got moving. And now the 49ers don't have that additional pick. I had gotten my head wrapped around this idea that we would be able to address both safety and edge rusher, or edge rusher and a luxury pick of best player available, or a wide receiver. And the idea that we only now have that pick at 61, it leaves me, I know we're going to get to some of the conversation around draft crushes, but it leaves us in an awkward position where we're at the tail end of those quality edge rushers that you and I both think the 49ers should probably go after.
Think the Niners make any moves to try to jump up into those spots by drafting, or I know they have, how many third rounders do they have this year? 3?
I think they have 2 third rounders right now. They have 9 picks altogether, a second, 2 thirds.
Because I thought they picked up some extra picks recently.
They did. They did get the compensatory picks.
Somebody blocked.
I believe they had 3 in the 3rd round, but then one of those goes to Miami in the deal that we made for Lance last year. But I'm going to look up right now what our draft picks are.
Because I thought they increased recently because of I could be wrong.
We have 9. That for sure is true.
We could use all 9 of them too.
Yes, we could. I mean, those bodies are very important. Cost control bodies. It goes back to that theory around building out the roster that Mac Mayoko broke down so well. The Rams have done a great job of maximize those high-end contracts, but then fill out the rest of the roster with some very affordable bodies. And the best way to do that is to bring in, draft picks, because that's cost controlled for a period of time. And so to me, that's why I think they probably make all 9. It looks like just 2 in the 3rd. So they have a 2nd, 2 3rds, a 4th, a 5th, 3 6ths, and then a 7th.
I had a lot of people say, "Oh, they got 3 6." That doesn't. Hey, man,
Elijah Mitchell,
right? We've gotten some good players in the 6th round, so don't sleep. I think was it Juwan Jennings was a 7th round pick?
Yeah, right? I think so.
So I mean, none of us would be too excited once you hit the last round of the draft. A lot of us aren't watching it anymore.
It's hard. You're like, I don't know those names. I'm going to pretend that I know those names, but I don't know those names.
I'm going to act like because I have a YouTube channel that I know who the hell those guys are, but I really don't. Outside. Well, I follow the draft a lot over the past. Haven't followed it this year, but I could probably name. I kind of know maybe the top 30.
Right.
But after that, I pretty much am I think he's a good player. Here, let me look it up in a draft guide that I get at the supermarket. I don't know.
Right? Sometimes you gotta find people that do good research so that you can look at their research. You cannot possibly do it all yourself. And so if you find that network of people that you can trust, for me, Dane Brugler over there at The Athletic does phenomenal work and puts out really insightful information about these draft prospects. And I have followed him for a long enough time and followed the draft simultaneously to see enough correlation that I'm comfortable with his analysis on some of those later round guys that I'm never going to get around to actually doing draft prep on.
Yeah. I mean, there's guys like Larry Krueger. He knows so many players in the draft.
Yes.
Because he was a former scout, and he just pulls guys that you're like, who? And then you end up seeing them and hey, Larry said that guy's name, so I props to people that have that kind of, and I call Larry this. I told him, I was like, I mean this in a respectful way, but you are a draft savant. Your ability to retain information about some guy from a Division III school is amazing and commendable, and freaking, that's why you were great in radio, and I think he's going to do great on YouTube as well. So
I agree.
That's freaking ridiculous. I wish I had that kind of brain, but I just do not. Want to say hi real quick to Celts Chronicles. Rich, he says, "What's up, Aaron and Rob?" He says, "I hope everyone is blessed. Keep it faithful. Real talk." Absolutely, my brother. Great guy. His channel is growing exponentially. Just a great optic. He's a good. He's just, his channel is growing. It's hard. Some people just got the face, the look, everything for YouTube. So props to him. I got my buddy Bashar in here. He's saying hi to Celts Chronicles. What's going on, Bashar? Thanks for all you guys for coming in here tonight. I appreciate it. I guess we should get right to your draft crushes now. I guess we transition to it.
Yes, I have a couple. Unfortunately, a couple of those are guys that I've sort of had that crush develop while I was under the belief that the 49ers would have another 2nd round pick, and doesn't seem that's going to be the case. So for the pass rushers, the edge rushers, to me, I think it's reasonable to assume that one of Boye Mafe, Nick Bonito, or the last gentleman, the name is escaping me. He's out of Penn that had the pro day today, Ebiketie. Ebiketie would be the 3rd. I do think it's fair to think that one of those 3 falls to the 49ers or falls close enough. If it gets into the 50s and one of these guys that the Niners really have their heart set on is still there, I'm okay with that type of a move. I think with 9 draft picks, you could give up one additional draft pick to make a little bit of a move up if you prioritize somebody. The safety I have my eye on, unfortunately, after the combine that made me fall in love with him, it seems that many people are in love with him as well. Jalen Petrie, he was just so silky smooth. Some people I respect and people that cover the 49ers as well have listed Leon O'Neal Jr. as one of their draft crushes, or at least a safety that they have their eye on. Well, Jalen Petrie and Leon O'Neal ran their drills next to one another, right? They just happened to be one and then the other. And each drill was that way, that it went in numerical order, and their numbers on the back of their jerseys were right next to one another. And it was a real contrasting view of someone who clearly has much more physical bruising style, but seemed very tight in O'Neal. And then you had Jalen Petrie, who just was so silky smooth, still seemed to have enough there to make the hits, to be a run stopper. But I get people wondering if he's a sort of in-betweener type of role. But that silkiness, the way he broke on the ball, the way that he got out of his breaks, it just impressed me. And I can't forget it. So to me, he's another player that if he falls into the 50s, I'm comfortable with the Niners trading up to get that done.
Yeah, it's interesting because you were comparing rushers, you have more angular guy, and then you have more of a bruising guy. Say like I'm trying to think of his name from Kansas City. He was out there, and then they re-signed him.
Frank Clark.
Frank Clark. He's more of just a big, brooding, heavy-bodied pass rusher, a very physical guy. I don't mind either. Or it's cool to have the speed rusher that can get around and get the bend, but at the same time, if you have a guy that's able to just punish offensive tackles and bully them into the backfield, I'm okay with that too. 49er Minded said, my crush is guy we're not getting is Christian Watson. Me too, buddy.
Yeah.
Been wanting him since September. I was telling my brother about him. I was like, yeah, there's this guy coming from the same college that Trey Lance is coming from. He's like 6'4", closer to 6'5", ran like almost like a 4.2, 4.23 or 4.3 40, like super fast.
Yeah, it ended up being a 4.36. Kelch Chronicles listed my other draft crush that I was just about to throw out there, Marcus Jones. I'm telling you, didn't get to see him perform because he had just had a second shoulder injury. He's an undersized nickel corner, but he's the best return man coming out this season. My hopes were dashed a little bit when we signed Ray McLeod, but can't have, too many options. He adds value as a nickel. My fear is that now that the Niners don't need a returner quite as much, that they won't invest in as much in drafting him as another team that does need both a nickel and a returner. But man, I was just so impressed by his interview, the way that he came across, the way that he carried himself, and everything that I have found out since then in looking at his tape. So that's definitely a crush for me.
Bay Area Baller brought up somebody. I'm going to go up. This draft crush is Romeo Dubes or Dubs. I can read, guys. But he did nothing at the combine or pro day, nursing a knee. His stock is falling. Apparently, he's a deep threat receiver at 6'2", which is that's a pretty good size guy. Listen, man, I'm all of the mindset that even if you've addressed something in free agency, if a guy's on your board, and even if he's not a position of need, so to speak, why not pad your receiver core even more with another dynamic, player? I don't like this thought of like, oh, we addressed it, so we're just not going to even look at it. Why would you do that? So
right.
I'm of the mindset of like, unless you really are using the draft to specifically go after needs that you missed in free agency. But I think drafting for needs is always dangerous because you pigeonhole yourself in the draft. Whereas you draft best player available, you literally go for the best player available. So I'm open for the Niners to just, if they're going to draft, man, try to keep hitting on those late round picks, guys. That's all I got to say. Keep hitting on those late round picks.
Right.
The ones that nobody sees coming, because to me, those are more valuable than the early round picks, because that really shows your scouts and how good your scouts are. And the fact that they can unearth these gems that a lot of people have never heard of. So the draft for me is always interesting when it gets into like day 2 or early day 3. I'm always intrigued. So those are, I'm going to be home. I'm going to be watching. I can't wait.
That's where you find that value. I mean, absolutely. And the Niners have shown a propensity to be able to do that.
Yeah. With the Niners, they missed so much early on. And then at the same time, they really know how to unearth these guys. I think that's a tribute to Jason Peters, more than even John Lynch.
I agree. That's always been my interpretation.
If John Lynch ends up moving on and we keep Peters, we need to make him we need to give him what do you call a promotion? Just keep him in this organization. I don't think
that man in the building.
I don't think people realize how freaking crucial he is to the 49ers drafting. So 49er Minded said, just imagine a panel with Schuh, First Takes, a Bay Area Baller, Celts Chronicles, and myself. I don't know if they're ready. That would be awesome.
Let's make it happen.
I haven't done a really loaded roundtable like that, but that would be awesome. So let's see. I've heard of Bay Area Baller. I've never actually he's interacted in my streams, but I've never I've never watched a stream with him in it yet. So I'm going to have to do some due diligence on that.
Yeah, there you go.
He's talked about throughout the Niners community. I hear his name all the time. So he seems like he's really good. So yeah, I would love to do that. We just all got to get our schedules on the same place.
Yeah,
same pace.
Right.
I'd say maybe closer to the draft.
Yeah, it'll be like herding cats trying to get all those people at the same time. But it would be worth it if we could make it. I think that would be a good energy group.
Pete German says KC's getting DK Metcalf.
I looked on
Seattle.
Twitter for this, and I'm not seeing it trending. You would think DK would be trending like crazy if that happened. So I can't confirm it in looking at Twitter right now. It wouldn't seem out of the question with the moves that KC has made, but I'm not seeing anything to confirm that at this point in time.
Sir Juju says, are the rumors about Debo wanting to get traded? I sure hope not. I think that's media created. I think that's Twitter created. I don't think there's anything behind that. People are taking stuff that he's doing in the offseason and the fact that he's hanging out with Mike McDaniels. Oh, there it is. He wants to go play for the Dolphins. No, man. People they have lives. You got to stop reading so much into everything we see on social media. I'm not saying, Sir Juju, that's what you're doing. I'm just saying people who like to start crap on social media, just get a hobby, dude, and go for a walk or something. Stop, because you get people and people believe it, and then all of a sudden,
people who are just out to put out misinformation. That is strange, and it's hard not to fall victim. I quickly retweeted and then deleted a tweet that caught me on somebody getting signed. I can't remember. I think it was a trade for Baker happening that I got caught on because it looked like Adam Schefter, but then it wasn't. And so, it's weird if that's like your pursuit. I just want to put out some fake news and hope to get somebody.
I was watching a stream with you, I think in Jackhammer, and I told you guys that somebody got signed. And then I went and looked and there was no sign of it. I'm like, oh God. I literally went on someone's stream and told them something and they were like, oh, that's interesting. And then it wasn't real. I felt so bad. Niner Gang podcast. I would love to be included in that 49er Minded. Hell yeah. The more the merrier, man.
Nice.
We just have to, I'm trying to figure out who would be a better moderator. I would think Rob might be. I think my ADD would go into overdrive. I wouldn't know.
The larger panels are difficult. It's hard to go a full circle. You've almost got to bounce around because otherwise it's just so long between when each person gets to say what they want to say. Right.
And then a lot of times you're reiterating something that's already been said.
Right.
Twice or three times. So, Bashar always thinks I'm funny for some reason. I don't know why. He says, get a hobby. It's true, man. If your whole thing is to go on social media and create a buzz with fake news, you're a loser. Bay Area Baller says it best. I hate the fake news people. Fastest way to get blocked. Yeah. A lot of times you could see it in their actual username that it's not who you think it is. So immediately, every time I see Adam Schefter, I look at the name and it's either spelled wrong or it's a completely different person. So I've kind of figured out the game. So one of the things that's happened this offseason, and that's kind of, I think it's under talked about. I think a lot of people have talked about it, is the massive coaching overhaul. 14 new coaches that the 49ers have, it's just been, I've never seen anything like that before. What are your thoughts on all of them? Are there any intriguing guys in that coaching mass exodus / all those guys arriving? My biggest one that I saw that caught me off guard was Clay Kubiak. I did not know his son was in coaching. So that's freaking really interesting. I guess he's going to coach alongside the quarterback coach. Forget who the quarterback coach is. I know Brian Greasy. So that's interesting. That's awesome. But at the same time, it's like not a lot. I don't think either of these guys have a ton of experience. So what are your thoughts on all this coaching craziness?
High level, my thoughts are that this is an area where Kyle Shanahan has earned some trust. He has done a great job to this point in hiring coaches that I had not been familiar with prior to the hire, developing them and sending them on their way as they're recruited by other teams to go on to bigger roles, head coaching roles, you name it. And so I do believe that he has earned some of my trust in doing that he has a track record I can go from. And I could say to myself, well, it seems kind of sketchy to give Brian Griese his first coaching job to bring up Trey Lance. Like, are you kidding me? This is the most important freaking job that anyone has ever had with the San Francisco 49ers. And you give it to a dude that, like, you're not sure how he's going to go about doing it. Like, you have nothing to go off of. I have nothing to go off of. But I go back to that trust. If I look at the rest of the coaching hires, the one that stands out to me as the exciting one and became doubly important after the news about Bobby Turner was Anthony Lynn. That to me was a home run. I thought it was a home run at the time. It became a grand slam when you took into account that Bobby Turner left. And I do think it's possible that we still feel the departure of Bobby Turner, not in the run game so much, but in the draft. So if the Niners are pursuing a late round steal, an undrafted free agent, Bobby Turner was notorious for being on the telephone, calling guys all day, every day during draft prep. And it gave him a great sense of who they were as people. He got to know them, old school stuff, not just watch their tape, not just have a short, no, talk to them quite a bit, talk to their mom, talk to their coach, he was that old school due diligence type of guy. And you can't replace that. No. You can't replace that with metrics. You can't replace that with anything except for grinding. And that to me was the impression I had of Bobby Turner. So I'm not worried about the X's and O's when it comes to the run game. Anthony Lynn has demonstrated an ability to put together a phenomenal rushing attack. But I do get slightly concerned on will that impact be felt in the draft?
Yeah, and that was actually what one of the topics, I guess we can interconnect them, was of all the moves, I thought that the Bobby Turner one is one that might have some significant impact. It's not just, you plug another guy in and then we'll be just fine. There's a reason Bobby Turner has a track record that he has of just, we find guys like Elijah Mitchell. Like whoever thought Elijah Mitchell would be what he was this year? Nobody. No. And that is a direct correlation. That is a direct correlation with Bobby Turner.
Yes.
So, it'll be interesting to see if he stays connected with them through like Zoom or other avenues to kind of maybe give some input. I would assume.
Because he's not done, right? He says he's just taking the year off. Hard to imagine a dude at 73 is like, I'm coming back to football, but like, the guy just grinds. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I don't think people realize how much he's going to be missed. And I hope it doesn't affect us too much. But he's done his work. I mean, we have some good running backs in the building. The fact that we re-signed Jeff Wilson Jr. to me was a huge move.
I agree.
And the fact that we have Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon, I think he's going to have an ascending year. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I just think that, he got lost in the shuffle last year and maybe he was struggling with some things. And the fact that, Elijah just came out and just took that job and was like, my job. Right. It would happen with a lot of guys on the Niners last year. It almost seemed like a lot of their draft class were like redshirted just because, and like Kyle was okay with it almost. Kind of weird.
Yeah. It was very strange in that regard.
Very strange.
I do see in the running back room the clearest, not need for an upgrade, but the clearest spot where you could upgrade, in my opinion, would be the third down back role. I would like to see the Niners bring in someone to compete or take the role from JaMychal Hasty.
Yeah, Hasty was very, very unimpressive this past season. He was just there was nothing there that says he has to be the guy. 49er Minus says, did you guys see the report that Trey pretty much has been reassured he's a starter? I have. And
the Jeremy Fowler report. To me, that hasn't really been called into question. I know people reference the idea that you could see the competition in camp, and I have to acknowledge it is now a possibility where, I always said it was like a 0.01% chance that happened. I got to upgrade that to like a 2-3% chance that happens. But I still think it is highly unlikely. You follow the dollars, right? You're certainly committed to Trey from what you've invested in him, draft picks, and the contract that he's on, his rookie deal. And then you follow the money on Nate Sudfeld. You didn't pay him to be a practice squad player. You paid him, unfortunately, in my book, to be the backup quarterback. And so that, to me, signals that it may be a while before we get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, but the plan is still to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah,
you can't go back on this now. That would be detrimental. That would be a locker room divider right there.
It would be a meltdown.
Oh, we're going to go back to Jimmy. We saw enough of Jimmy. We know what he is. He's not going to get us over the hump.
We don't know
what we have in Trey, and I want to see what we have in Trey. And I think the whole freaking league wants to see what they have in Trey. Yeah. So I'm ready. I'm ready to move on. I don't hate Jimmy as in a personal way. I just my brother's like, man, ugh. And I'm like, right? He's right. Like, I'm done. It's over with. Let's go.
I really like Jimmy, but I share that sentiment of I'm done. Like, it is just healthiest for all parties involved to move on.
Yeah, it's like Brock Lesnar giving me a chokehold. I'm out, dude. I'm tapping out, dude. It's over with. Niner Gang Podcast says, Rob, you have the perfect voice for radio. I hear you and I just want to listen. I totally agree. Rob has that perfect, like that buzz, that bass, that I can't explain it. You just got that voice. You got a perfect voice for radio. Definitely.
I appreciate it.
Jeff Wilson Jr., there was a question, and David McNew, what about Jeff Wilson Jr. being the third down running back? I wouldn't have a problem with that.
You would think that'd be a fit because he is a surprisingly nimble pass catcher, as evidenced by that phenomenal Arizona game in 2019. But I would wonder why he wasn't able to overtake that role from JaMychal Hasty last year. I do think the knee lingered for him, and he came back midseason. He wasn't truly in form. We needed him to take some snaps, and then he sort of disappeared from the rotation for a little bit. I think it's fair to assume he comes back healthy this year and could reclaim that. But I don't know. I guess I want a shiftier, faster back for that third down role. I had it earmarked for some of the snaps Mostert was going to get. I thought for sure he would be their de facto third down back and home run hitter. But obviously that one flew the coop.
Yeah. So Nick, what did he say? Nick Money Meyer, Ricky Waters way better than MC Nasty. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's Ricky freaking Running Waters.
Running Waters, baby.
He was a special player back then.
He was.
I'll say that I'll get this comment and then we'll move forward. Nick Money Meyer said the whole scheme going to change and Trey and Trey Sermon. Sermon will be in the shotgun more with Trey, more power. Same with the linemen they want, more like Josh Allen. I've heard this before, that the Niners might be kind of critiquing or not critiquing. They might be taking their offense and kind of tweaking it a little bit to more of a power run game with Trey. Do you think that's the case? Will there be some wholesale changes with the Niners offense, or is it pretty much going to be the Garoppolo offense that we've seen?
I mean, I think it's fair to read the tea leaves and to say to yourself, hey, what's the common theme between some of these moves? And I read it much the same, that they could incorporate that. I wouldn't see a pivot, a hard pivot, so much as an incorporation of some of those concepts into what they already do so well. I certainly think it's a distinct possibility and would explain why the 49ers didn't use as much of those young rookie players, because they got away from this idea that they were going to go back and forth with the quarterbacks. Initially, that seemed to be the plan. It was like, we're going to get a little bit of a rotation going here. We're going to get Trey in. We're going to get him those snaps. And then Kyle, for whatever reason, if you believe exactly what he said, then he just felt like he was out of rhythm as a play caller. And so that plan fell by the wayside. And you could say to yourself, well, speculation is then that the plan to utilize those rookies fell by the wayside as well. But all it would take is the shift to the new offense, the shift to Trey Lance, and Kyle will incorporate those schemes. I'm in a wait and see mode, but it makes sense to me as a possibility.
Real quick with this comment, I thought it was interesting. So they know it's off topic, but I've seen quite a few 49ers fans talk about how we beat the Rams so many times, but I feel like they beat us in the one most important game and they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, the whole us beating them 6 times means nothing. They beat us in the championship game for the right to go and win the Super Bowl. So yeah, Niners fans need to get off that whole kind of like us talking about what we did 30, 40 years ago. It's like, guys, it's time to live in the here and now. Rams won the Super Bowl. Give them their props.
Don't give the other team locker room material. Don't give them that bulletin board material, right? I heard so many Rams fans when I was walking out of that stadium in the NFC Championship game, so many Rams fans rightly sort of celebrating it because I'm sure they had heard it from 49er faithful about how we own you, right? And I was never one of those to say that because I just don't like to be disrespectful in that way. I prefer people treat me with respect, so I treat other fan bases with respect as well. But it was, to me, it was like, well, we kind of earned this trash talk, right? Our fan base was, even if it wasn't me, was very boisterous about ownership. And I think those games meant something. The 6 games that we won meant something. And I don't think that they dictated how that NFC Championship game was going to go. That was going to be its own match regardless, right? And they were very fired up.
That game was its own entity for sure.
It was. And I also think that people take for granted, one play going one way or the other would have been the difference in Green Bay. We wouldn't have even gone to the NFC Championship game. One play going this way or the other could have been the difference in getting to the Super Bowl. So I think people take for granted how close those matchups are within the NFL and how much a single snap can matter.
I think we got to be realistic. We backed into that win with Green Bay, to be honest with you.
Yes.
We didn't steal it from them. We didn't kick their ass. The weather was a factor, and it affected both teams. And the Niners made a special teams play that tilted the game's momentum, and they won the game because of it.
Yes.
Sometimes fans get like, "Oh, we whooped you." Really? We barely won by a field goal. So everybody needs to calm down. We haven't won a Super Bowl in almost 30 years. So it's cool to be passionate about your team and be kind of braggadocious. But to you, like you say, you give it's built bulletin board material, and you give other fan bases a chance to really crap on us if we come up short. So
I'd much rather be a gracious winner than talking trash all the way up to it for myself personally.
Harry Baller says, although the Kyle pick with Baby McVay is hilarious. Absolutely. I don't know, whoever comes, the people that do that for not a living, but just who make memes to go on social media. Props to you as a person for making everybody's day. I don't know who has the time to do all that, but every time I see these pics where people superimpose heads on bodies and stuff, I'm just like, geez, somebody has way too much time on their hands. So my last 2 topics with you, my second to last is the Debo contract numbers. Now that we've had all these recent signings, to me, I'm under the impression that the whole we got to try to do what's best for the organization. Parag Marathe, usual way of doing things is going to go out the window with Deebo Samuel if he has another, or actually if going into this year, if they decide to do it this year. I feel like the Niners are unfortunately either going to have to pay him what he rightly deserves, or I don't know what else they would do. I don't know if you would want to move on from him. I think that would be stupid.
I agree.
What do you think about that?
I agree. It would be stupid to move on from him. I think you have to have some of these core foundational players, even if it's at a position where you say to yourself, well, the value just doesn't match what we're having to pay right now. For Debo, I think it does. I think when you look at the percentage of the offense that ran through him, the impact that he has on the locker room, the mentality that he has, I think he's worth spending the bag. I understand going through the mental exercise of exploring what it would mean to trade him, because you do have to look at this as a business. You do have to look at the cap and an assembly of teams as a game, a puzzle that you're putting together, and people will get creative. It certainly, I would have never guessed that Tyreek Hill was going to be traded for a freaking Pirates chest full of draft picks.
Crazy.
And yet here we are. If that same pirate chest of draft picks had been offered for Deebo Samuel, would I have considered it? Yes, I would have considered it. I don't think I would have necessarily taken it. I don't know, because I haven't really given it that thought, but I wouldn't have laughed it off. I would have.
Oh, we froze. No. Hello? Oh. Am I frozen, guys? Am I frozen, guys? Are we back?
Yes, a power surge here in the house just killed the internet. I am now attached to my iPhone, so I apologize if that tether slows down the connection. But yeah, all of a sudden things flashed in front of me, and you were gone.
Yeah, you buzzed out for a second. I'm like, is it me again? Because I have this really good internet, but sometimes because if it's I reset it today just because I know it was going live.
Yeah,
It's that the Google Mesh. It's really good, but for some reason, with any internet, if you don't refresh it after a couple of days, it tends to get a little choppy.
for sure. Yeah, this was power surge because I lost my little podcaster thing. Like things went down and then back up. So I'm sure my router is currently restarting.
As he says, first takes doing the Super Bowl Jimmy eyes. Well, my eyes must have been closed shut when I froze, like Jimmy throwing that pick in the Super Bowl. Very funny, very funny. I guess we could just get back on the topic of. Hold on one second here. Get back on the topic of the Debo contract numbers and where we would sit with a possible Debo. You said that you would look at the draft picks as a possibility.
Yes.
My whole thing with that, Rob, is the only way you make that move is if you know you have somebody in the building. Say Ayuk comes in next year and completely becomes one of our best players and kind of has a not a resurgence, but he becomes what Debo has been the last couple of years. He becomes that player with Trey as the quarterback. That be the only way that you make that kind of move if you know you have somebody wait in the wings waiting. Because the Niners of the '80s always moved on early from guys,
Right.
Because they always drafted with the mindset of getting rid of guys early when they still have value.
Yes.
Only way you do that with a guy like Debo is you have to have somebody that that can come in and take over that spot and kind of leave the offense, or not leave the offense, have it be a seamless transition where you don't see such a dramatic drop off.
Yeah, unless you're a rebuilding team and you're just resigned to the idea that you're not going to compete. I agree. The 49ers view themselves as a playoff contender, as a possible Super Bowl contender. You just couldn't bail on Debo without having more ammunition there to bolster out the wide receiver room. I think that, I originally put, Debo be in that $19 million range per year. And then I was like, oh, it's probably going to crack 20. And then these damn deals just keep coming out one by one. And now you have to say to yourself, well, is it going to be 21 mil a year, 22, 23?
Right.
It seems like the Niners need to incentivize getting this deal done right now. Because the longer you wait, the more of these deals will get done. And you don't want to come behind Jefferson or AJ Brown when he gets his deal done with the Tennessee Titans, right? You want to be in front of that because each deal resets the market.
Yep.
And Debo is going to rightfully believe that he deserves as much or more than any of those players signed before him.
I think the Niners need to do right by him too, because I think it'll set a bad precedent if either they trade him or lowball him. That says a lot that players that have deals coming up are going to be like, wow, they really didn't value him. Like us moving on from Forrest Buckner, I think like Joe Staley was caught off guard by it with that whole situation.
Oh, that was terrible.
Yeah, that was one of our one of the biggest blunders we've had.
That was a Moneyball move. If you want to criticize the 49ers for being a Moneyball team, that was the one I think you can point to and say, you got cute. And they could still justify it if Javon Kinlaw's surgery really did transfer. There's a great interview on SF Niners by Brad Graham the other day with Javon Kinlaw. I thought that was phenomenal. And it reinvigorated my belief in, hey, let's give this guy a chance. It is too early to write him off. But if he doesn't have a bounce back year, then I think you can definitively say, yeah, Niners, you got way too cute. And it blew up in your face in that one.
Yeah, this is kind of, for me, it's kind of put up or shut up for Javon Kinlaw. I'm kind of tired and all of it. He has a bit of bravado when he's on the microphone. And
yeah,
I don't know.
I like that side of his personality, but I do agree that on the field, you certainly have to see something in order to have some faith.
Yeah. I always get a little bit off-put by guys who talk a lot and don't perform. That's just my personal opinion.
Sure.
To kind of close this thing out, speaking of trading players, I've asked Larry Krueger this and Ryan Peacock, and they both were like, no. Would you ever think of trading George Kittle while he's still, I guess you would say, in the prime of his career, uh, with all his injuries and all the things that he deals with because of the type of player that he is, physicality, would that kind of move ever cross your mind, or are you of the mindset of Larry Krueger is that you don't trade away your best players?
I think everything in this world is for sale. I think everything has a price. And that to me includes pretty much every player. I think I'm contradicting myself. I know I'm contradicting. I said everything has a price. And then I say, most players, because I do get emotionally attached to players. And that side of me says no. The business, the logical side of me says you always listen. You always listen. Now, would I ever shop George Kittle? No. Emphatically, no, because I think that the chances of that getting out, the chances of that then leading to a player hearing they're going to be traded and then saying, great, well, I want to trade. Like that can just melt down quickly. So if I'm the 49ers front office, I'm not exploring trades for George Kittle, but if the phone rings and I pick it up and it's someone with a ridiculous, treasure chest full of draft picks for George Kittle, I'm listening. And I'm doing some due diligence. I'm looking at what the haul is and then considering, where is he in his contract right now? What does he bring to the organization? Where I think Larry is very astute in pointing out is you cannot simply measure the productivity on the field because the San Francisco 49ers are a very robust business and they need to sell season tickets. They need promotional materials. Within the locker room, you need leaders. You need players that are the face of the franchise. And Kittle has those intangibles, both for the franchise as a whole and within the locker room as well. And I think that there's a cost associated with sending those types of players out that isn't a part of the deal, that isn't a part of the actual trade terms that come to play. So I would look into it if someone called me, but it would need to be a really over-the-top deal for me to agree to it.
Yeah, definitely. Just real quick, this says Valdez Scantling just signed with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I thought I saw it was 3 years, 30 mil with some upside on that. Pretty crazy, the type of contracts going out for wide receivers.
It takes two guys to replace Tyreek Hill. That's amazing. Signing freaking Juju and now him. They're talented guys. It's not like they're bereft of talent. Scantling's kind of an inconsistent guy because he can get open, he's quick, but he has stone hands sometimes. So we will see how that works out. I mean, the Chiefs are in it every year. Why not press the issue and try to do what best you can to push
for MVS, dude. I mean, you go from the MVP throwing you the football to Patrick frickin' Mahomes. Like, what a career that guy has been blessed with as far as quarterbacks throwing him the ball.
Yeah, that's just not fair.
No,
most quarterbacks never get that. I mean, Jerry Rice had it for the first two times. He had Montana and Young before going on to a guy like trying to think of the Raiders, who their quarterback was. I forget.
Was it Gannon at that time?
Yeah, I think it was Rich Gannon.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting. Yeah, that's like I said, the Chiefs are one of those teams that they're in it every year, so they're not against making moves. I wish the Niners sometimes would have that kind of aggressiveness a little bit if they think they're that close. Take that shot, throw that dart on the board and see if it sticks. But It is what it is. I think we are a team that builds through the draft and tries to re-sign our own guys and reward them, and I'm okay with that too. Like you said, the thing with trading a guy like Kittle is he brings so much more to this team other than just being a great player. He's a great teammate. He's an integral part of that locker room. So you ever move away from a guy like that, you better have a player that is as close to him as you can get production-wise or talent-wise, and that draft pick better hit, because if it doesn't, like with the DeForest Buckner situation, you're going to have a lot of people scratching their heads thinking, man, are they really just all about saving money or do they care about winning? So
yes,
interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks, Rob, with the draft coming up as we get closer to the draft. See if the Niners make any other moves. I have a feeling they won't, but it would be interesting to see.
I think it'll be perimeter players. If it is, I don't think there's going to be many splashes made from here on out.
Yeah, I just don't believe it either. I want to believe it because I play Madden, or I used to play Madden, and I used to make the Niners a super team. But unfortunately, in real life, the Niners just don't run their operation like that. So appreciate everybody coming on in the chat. Appreciate you guys. The super chat earlier in the episode, I appreciate that. You guys are always really, really awesome. I'm gracious to have such great people that follow me on YouTube. I know a lot of you guys are fans of Rob as well, so don't forget to give his channel the likes and the attention that it deserves. Been a great show, Rob. I had a lot of fun having you on. Thank you very much for everybody that was involved in the show. It's kind of in that weird part in the off season where there's not a whole lot going on other than free agency. It's kind of like we're just kind of picking stuff to talk about, and hopefully it can carry us through an hour or so. But I think we pretty much nailed all of it, and it'll be interesting to see if anything happens with this Garoppolo situation. And then after that, it's really the NFL draft, and be interesting the Niners do any type of wheeling and dealing, or if they stay where they are and just pick when their number's called. So
yes, I will be there in Las Vegas. I'm very excited to be there for the draft. Still, I believe that I'll have the media credentials as well. I had the plan to go to the draft before knowing that I might be able to actually cover it from that standpoint. But very excited to be there in Las Vegas. Very excited to provide the coverage that I can while I'm there. And just to say, I have a show coming up in 20 minutes on my channel, the Sneakerhead Call-In Show. For any of you watching that are sneakerheads, which are members of Rob Schuh's channel, the link is on the community tab of my YouTube page to get backstage, to come on the program. But anybody can be there. So whether you're a sneakerhead or not, go over, check it out. It will be a dope conversation.
Yes.
You can get in the chat and be part of the dialogue.
Yes, definitely. Everybody go support Rob's channel and go check out his stream. I'll probably check it out at some point too after I eat dinner. So hopefully you're still there. All right, everybody. Everybody have a great afternoon, night, depending on where you are. Take care, everyone. And as usual, I'll see everybody on the flip side. Bye, everyone.